Generally, I think, are a pretty optimistic channel. We generally talk about what we're excited about.
Yep.
And that's by design. Kind of despite our name, which sounds like, we might be more negatively critical.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I think we're going to actually kind of get into that negative criticism a little bit more than usual.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
But we are going to get to a place where I am gushing about how wonderful
Okay.
something is.
We're going to end on a high note.
We haven't really addressed the season.
Yeah. I was messaging you about it a little bit recently because I've been kind of generally struggling to find the excitement that Magic once gave me. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a lot of things going on in my life that could have something to do with that.
Yeah.
I've gotten really into Baldur's Gate 3. So that's kind of like taking up all my hyperfixation brain cells right now. But yeah, I've just...
But to be fair, you seem to already be on that path.
I was already
before getting Baldur's Gate.
Yes. Like, I was trying to rationalize it, and I was like, oh, it's because of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
But no, I think I've actually been feeling this, like, for a few months, and, like, part of it is I'm not real excited about a lot of the stuff Magic has planned for this year.
Yeah.
So... there's that.
Initially, yeah. So specifically initially, the year was supposed to end with a revisit to Lorwyn Shadowmoor.
Yeah.
Which was the thing I was easily most excited for. I love that plane. And I'm really disappointed to see it pushed out by yet another Universes Beyond product. And this is an area where I don't want to just kind of live up to the stereotype of Magic players just complaining about everything.
Yeah.
And Universes Beyond. I don't hate all of Universes Beyond. I liked the Lord of the Rings set. I really like the Fallout Commander decks, the Warhammer Commander decks.
I love the Mothman deck.
But certainly them taking up some of the oxygen in the room at all dilutes the actual world building of Magic's core identity, right?
Yeah.
Just in general. But now, this year, that has gone from they were supplemental items to or just a once a year set. Having just the Lord of the Rings set was a big deal. It kind of diverted the focus, but this year it's half the sets. It is half the sets.
Yeah, I think this kind of started when for me, like, feeling not very excited about Magic was probably around the time we went to Vegas and they were announcing a lot of the new stuff and like seeing just how much of the coming products were going to be like Universes Beyond, and not just, like you said, commander decks or like once a year supplemental products, but like, oh, these are going to take up slots that would have otherwise gone to a normal Magic set, which I was not feeling real excited about. And then like I was kind of trying to be positive about it and thought, well, like I wasn't excited about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but then that turned out to be something I loved. So like maybe I won't hate this. Yeah. And then we got to Aether Drift or Ether Drift?
I think it's Ether.
Ether Drift.
Yeah.
We got to like Ether Drift preview season kind of, and there's some stuff that's cool, but I'm not really excited about this set. Like, this is one of the first pre-releases I'm gonna skip in a while. I hate the checkered flag set symbol. I hate it so much.
I know.
Every time I see it, I just have this like, alright.
Yeah.
kind of response to it.
Well, and that comes into the second kind of big theme here. And Mark Rosewater has recognized publicly in some of his podcasts and articles that they have leaned in too much to the Planet of the Hats concept recently. That's, I think, how he described the Markov Manor reception, and he agreed. We kind of lean too much into this is the meme or the zeitgeist that we're referencing, the theme. But then you do have that, even though I also end up liking Outlaws. Yeah. It's like that was the cowboy set. Yeah. And if that is the only real not diversion, but like departure from kind of the core fantasy flavor of the game, that's fine. It doesn't disrupt the balance too much. But when it's detectives, cowboys, and then we have a couple of things that are, well, I mean, no, Duskmourn is really pretty. A lot of people didn't think Bloomborough was in flavor. I found it to be within core fantasy flavor.
I felt like it was close
but
enough.
Then pushing the temporal boundary into modern horror, and now Death Race, and then so in like this 2-year period, we're gonna get like Bloomburrow, if you agree that that's core fantasy, and then the Return to Tarkir, and that's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, this year we get the Death Race theme, which again, I don't want to overstate the negativity of this. Magic's design team does a phenomenal job of taking these other very different themes and making them feel like Magic.
Yeah, it's not even really like gameplay stuff necessarily that I'm not excited about. It's just like the overall flavor. I'm like, I just don't feel anything, which I think is in some ways worse than negativity, because it's apathy. Like, I don't feel anything about it. I'm just like, I can't be bothered to get up and get out of my house to go buy this or participate. Because like the only thing that I have strong feelings about is the set symbol, and beyond that I just feel kind of apathetic. Same thing for like some of the other stuff they have planned for later in the year. Like I think there's a Spider-Man set that's upcoming, which I just don't have any. I don't hate Spider-Man by any means. I'm just also not invested in that at all.
I mean, there's a lot of Marvel characters that I am pretty invested in. I don't know. I guess it's not in frame right now. There's an X-Men on the wall there. But I don't really want that overlapping with my Magic. It's another thing that just kind of pulls focus too much. And I mean, it's not fundamentally different than Warhammer or Fallout. But I don't want these being half the year, and they're also going to be in standard now. And I understand I get the business reason they did that, and I also get the argument and kind of appreciate that bringing more people into the game is generally good, but it's very much okay, but at what cost? You know, because if it's not the game I like anymore,
at what point is it not really the game we like playing anymore? And like, okay, well now it feels quite different from what I thought I was getting when I signed up for this. It's like I had less feelings about it when this sort of stuff was more confined to secret layers, to the like Fallout. I was totally fine. I don't think I bought any. I am not really in the Doctor Who fandom anymore, but like I have a Dalek tattoo. Like I love I there was a time when I was very into Doctor Who. I didn't buy any of the Doctor Who Commander decks, but I also didn't feel anything about it because I was like, okay, that's a thing that's there. I know some people who were very excited about that product, who did buy it and had a great time with it. I personally just wasn't interested in it, and that was fine. And then I did buy the Mothman deck, had a great time with that. I enjoyed the Lord of the Rings set. I mean, we're both Tolkien appreciators. So, you know, that was kind of a no-brainer for me. But also, like, I had less of an issue with things like, okay, if this is a secret layer, I just don't have to buy it. I don't have to participate in it. Now it's like, okay, I have to decide if I want to go do this pre-release for the Spider-Man set. And that's feeling like a pretty easy no.
If you can't get excited for Ether Drift, I'm not expecting you to show up at Spider-Man.
Oh no, I'm gonna be real busy with my. I found out you can get mods for Baldur's Gate 3 on PS5, and so while I initially started a completely normal run through, then I downloaded the Kuatoa mod, and I was like, this is how we're playing this game.
We'll put a screenshot so that people
can
know.
The people need to know about Glub Glub.
Yeah,
my character's name is Glub Glub. They're a cleeric. Their cutscenes are amazing, and I'm real excited about that in a way that I just cannot get excited about Ether Drift. Yes, please tell the people about Glub Glub. It's very important.
Yes, we won't tell. We will show.
We will show you Glub Glub.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the kind of where we're at. I'm marginally more excited for Ether Drift. Like, Duskmourn, not my flavor, but I loved the draft format. And so, I don't know, this part of preview season where I can get in and actually look at the cards and do a very bad job at trying to figure out which ones are good, that is a lot of fun to me. So, so I get invested in that. But my experience with the world building and the aesthetic of Ether Drift has been very up and down, because when we first heard about a Death Race set, I thought, okay, I mean, it's once again a little Planet of the Hats potentially, but I assumed so they told us much earlier than they released all the details that it would be across 3 planes. So I'm thinking, okay, something like there is a MacGuffin, like loot, that they have to chase because it is important to the plot and someone has it and someone else needs it. And so I thought, okay, this could be cool. And then they reveal, oh, no, it's just like a sporting event.
Yep.
And so this has less appeal to me. Yeah. Once again, it's like I talked about with my experience with cowboy stuff. My experience living in Texas is that, that's the elementary and middle school bullies. That's who that is to me. That's my lived experience. I don't have a much better experience with racing culture, which is definitely, it's stereotyping. Like I realize this of myself. But it doesn't have an inherent like good vibes to me.
I think for me, it's kind of like for me, it's like there's a time and a place, and so my entire experience with racing culture is Mario Kart and the Star Wars pod racing game.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want that to overlap with Magic.
Yeah.
Like I like those things over there. I don't know that I necessarily want them over here.
Yeah. And so that's where I was sitting until we got this first Planeswalker's Guide. And the actual teams, I love them. I love almost all of them. Suddenly my hype meter went way back up. And it's still pretty high up as long as I focus on that. You know, I've had a chance to read all the stories. And I am... I don't like this overall plot and everything. Yeah. This feels, once again, very much like Outlaws. It's like, okay, this is silly, this is campy, this asks for way too much suspension of disbelief in terms of the flavor of the way everything else works.
I have read zero of the story, but I have gleaned from the group chat that I'm a part of with you and our play group that the story is not very good in this instance.
That's in my estimation.
Yeah, I mean that's the impression I got from you, our friend James over at MTG Critical, and a couple other folks that we play with. We're just not real thrilled with where the story went for this one.
Yeah.
Like, I remember dropping in on there, specifically there was a section where, like, you guys were kind of arguing about what was actually happening in the story, and then came to the conclusion that there were some things that were pretty unclear, actually.
Yeah, that's actually my sense. A lot of it is just very unclear. It has a weird level of focus. A lot of questions to me like, okay, if there are 10 teams participating, why isn't there, like, one car per team? But there seems to be just a bajillion. One of the other main suspension of disbelief issues I have is, okay, this is a race where you have to get from point A to point B. How do you deal with the flying versus ground-based thing? Like, do they have the same rules? Do they have to be touching the ground when they start and when they end? And also...
Or is it just a free-for-all? Like, whatever, no rules.
Yeah, you could just kill each other? Because there's definitely, like, attempts to kill each other, but is that sanctioned?
Allowed?
And I don't know. I think the idea is that's supposed to be a fun question to explore, but to me that's just a bunch of muddle. And they didn't make that right for me. I don't know if they could have, but it didn't. It didn't work. But I do still love a lot of the individual teams, the cards and their explanations. And today I was just going to take the opportunity to gush about my favorite one.
Okay.
So let's have a look at the Guidelight Voyagers. But before I start gushing, let me complain about something else.
Okay. Yes.
So I like the premise of this team. And the blurb here from the Planeswalker's Guide, each one gets about 3 paragraphs. And this one describes a team of robots who ended up here mysteriously, and they just want to go home. And I love that. That is such a compelling idea.
They don't even want to be here.
Yeah, they're just trying to get home, and they're using the race because it's an opportunity. It just, for whatever reason, the race provides opportunities for them to work on getting home. And, like, that's great. I love that. But then the opening sentence just really trips me up. The Guidelight Voyagers are an uncanny collection of automatons captained by a single mind, a machine that calls itself Mendicant Core. If you purge the captained by a single mind, I'd be good with this. And I just glossed over it the first time I read, but the more I look at that, the more like, what does that mean? To just, in general, if you're talking about just a normal, like, human or humanoid team, and you said captained by a single mind, you'd be like, oh, why are you specifying a single mind? A captain is, like, the word captain means a person who is doing a job. That usually comes with a single mind. So I assume then it must mean something else here. maybe it means it's a hive mind. That's the natural next.
But then that doesn't even sound like a hive mind situation. That sounds like there's one consciousness that's inhabiting or controlling every single body.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking, is what they were getting at. But then the rest of the paragraphs don't really support that. I mean, they kind of... I honestly wonder if that was the idea at some point and they just changed it and never updated the text enough.
Yeah.
Because the next sentence says they work like like limbs of a vast intelligence united together in the singular purpose to transit the plans, blah, blah, blah. So that also could be like, okay, this is one conscious entity. But then, like the third paragraph, under Mendicant's guidance, they deemed the infrastructure of the race to be perfect.
Okay, so now we're back to group.
If one organism or entity is guiding the others, they're not a single consciousness. Like, that is not a compatible concept. And so this whole description, as far as it concerns that, is just kind of a mishmash. I don't... My conclusion is they are just individual robots, and maybe they're more interlinked than...
Okay. Like, maybe they can communicate...
Yeah, like instantaneously from our perspective. And that makes perfect sense.
Sure.
But the single mind thing really tripped me up, and so I'm going to ignore that from now on. I think it's just Mendicant is the cool boss robot.
Okay.
Or leader robot. Not really a boss. More sympathetic than that. So leader robot, like Optimus Prime. Okay. And the rest of them are just, trying their best. And so I got to get to this one who we're looking at, whose visual was included with the Planeswalker's Guide, just because that also reinforces this isn't actually a hive mind. The flavor text. Can you read that?
Yeah. The Guidelight Voyagers had been stranded on Avishkar with no way to get home. They considered every last unit essential, down to the glitchiest grunt.
Right, so it's not a single mind making this decision like, oh, this part of my body is glitchy. I mean, that's just, that would be such a weird way to say that. So that sounds like it's a group of robots who can have opinions about each other, and this one is the glitchiest grunt, and look at it sticking his little tongue up.
I love that.
I love this guy. And that might be one of those things you kind of need to be zoomed in and looking in preview season instead of at card size.
He's so cute. I love how round he is, too. Yeah. I like round robots.
Me too. And most of these robots are round, and that's part of my love of these guys. But then Mendicant Core itself, the leader. Another point of like weirdness, but I think this one's actually cooler, and that's the word mendicant. Do you recognize that word? Because it just tickled my brain when I read it. It was like, I know that word from somewhere, but I didn't know what it meant.
I don't think so.
So I look it up initially when this drops, and it says that means beggar. I'm like, what? But then I was, in the middle of reading the rest of the thing, and I didn't come back to it for a month or two. And so I looked into this more, and it actually is more associated with like an ascetic monk who is a beggar.
Okay.
Like, so a vow of poverty kind of thing.
Okay. And
so now I'm thinking, okay, maybe this isn't just a weird random name. Maybe they do mean something cool by this. And now if that's true, that is kind of cool. I'm still not precisely sure what it means, but maybe it's like this group of robots views themselves as dependent on the charity of those around them to help them achieve their goal of getting home or something like that. Or maybe Mendicant, the leader, is dependent on the charity of the other robots to help. I don't know. There seems like there might be something there. The uncharitable read is just like, that was a terrible name because that makes no sense. But I want to think this is actually purposeful and means something kind of clever. And also when it's Mendicant Core, I don't know. Once again, I'm thinking, is that centered? This whole thing is about looking at the leader robot's role within this collective, or is it how the Guidelight, because the Guidelight Voyagers is the team, but just the Guidelight is their faction, their race. So is this more referencing how they relate to the peoples around them? I don't know. But the art for this guy is cool. It is right on this. So I'm primarily looking at the alt art, the borderless art. Both that and the standard art are very similar, like, model as they've been doing since they've gotten really into this booster fun era with a bunch of alt arts. Most of the time when they have a legendary creature with multiple art, they do clearly coordinate closely between the artists to have the same model presented in just different styles. But I'm really looking at the Dan Mumford version, who was the artist who did those awesome Duskmourn full art lands.
Yeah.
And you can kind of recognize the same style. He definitely has a distinct style. But this robot he's kind of fierce. I don't want him mad at me, but he also has this kind of inquisitive, gentle element, because he reminds me of Johnny Five or Wally. Okay, he has that the little eyebrow design.
Yeah, he doesn't look fierce to me. To me, he just looks very serious, like he's deep in contemplation.
A little confused.
Yeah, like if I told him a joke, he probably wouldn't laugh at it. But
but he'd try and figure out why you were laughing at it.
I think it's funny.
See, I love the concept of the robot who is attained sentience and is trying to understand emotion and all that. So I love Data from Star Trek Next Generation. Me too. I love Johnny Five so much. And these are, I guess, things that hit the right point in my life to really make it. And I love Terminator 2 to the degree that I do not acknowledge that there are any other installments in that franchise. I have never seen any others, and as far as I know, they don't exist, because that movie had a perfect ending. Perfect.
You're like, yeah, then after that, they just stopped making those. Yes. Why would you make more?
Yeah.
Anyway.
You shouldn't, because no fate but what we make for ourselves. And, like, if you do anything past that, it ruins that message. Anyway, this is a Magic channel.
Yeah.
So, Mendicant Core. Cool looking robo.
Yeah, I like this robo.
Yeah, good robo. And then he is also rendered in the Signpost Uncommon Voyage Home, looking a little more so he has his team.
Yes.
I just am reflexively defaulting to him. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to stop my brain from doing that in the next 10 minutes. So for right now, Mendicant's a him. Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's what I've been doing too, and I just realized that, I was just reflexively doing that.
Yeah, we probably ought to work on that in general, but
I don't think anywhere it was stated what pronouns Mendicant uses, or if they use any at all, but this is I like this with the little teammates up front.
They're round.
They're round. I love the way their little arms stick out, and I like it that they're all a bit unique. Like, they don't have the exact same body plan.
Yeah.
They're not little cookie cutter robots.
Like,
they feel individual.
It gives us so much to latch onto about what are these people from? What was their purpose? And that's cool. And a large scale thought I've been thinking about the game lately is we probably could use a lot more lack of answers, because I think a lot of the kind of
we have too many answers.
Yeah, we keep following the same, Justice League, which I know that's an old joke. It's a 10, 11, 12-year-old joke. Whenever the Gatewatch got formed, but like that's still the era we're in, where we kind of have all these plot-armored planeswalkers who we just follow again and again and again, and all the best stories don't involve them.
Yeah,
they're the side stories about like a Spindlewhite from the first Beastie.
Yeah, that was a good one.
The stories that bring literal tears to my eyes, they never are the ones following the planeswalkers. The great fiction we're getting now, they're the side stories where authors are allowed to create new characters in the Magic settings and like explore in that way, and we don't have to follow what happens with them for the rest of their lives.
Yes,
we just
get a little window into their happenings
and get a cool story.
These little round robots. I'm trying to remember the name of the creature. I think it's a robot. It's from the Gundam universe. I think it's Haro. If you want to Google what that looks like real quick, it's a round helper robot. I think it's Haro.
Yep. Oh, that's exactly. It even has that like same.
Yes.
The round jointed arms.
Yes. So this view, the Signpost Uncommon that we're looking at, where you're looking at these creatures from, they're looking at Mendicant. He's showing them his plan for the race, or their plan to go home.
Yeah.
And you can see them from behind. You can very clearly see their little jointed arms. And so I was like, those things look so much like Haro. They're really cute.
A thematic unity across a lot of these flavor texts is like the ending of this one: firm imperative, let's go. And I love that little flavor of they have their, like, a description of the inflection they're trying to convey.
Yeah, like the Elcor had that in Mass Effect.
Oh, yes!
When they would talk to you, because they have a very monotone delivery.
Yeah.
So they would state that at the beginning in the same way, like, firm imperative, let's go.
Yes, exactly. It's so cool.
Yeah,
and, like,
I like that too.
The diversion unit is one of my other favorites here.
Oh my gosh.
Declarative goodbye. It's a little sassy.
It is.
Its art is a little less sassy because it looks like it's in trouble, but...
It looks like it's in trouble. I love the display for its face.
The little emoji eyes, yeah.
That's great.
And that seems to be a theme across most of these. They have these little emoji-style faces, and they're just so cute, and I love them.
Yeah, that's quite delightful.
The nesting robot is another of my favorites.
Great.
I am really...
That looks like a CRT monitor strapped into one of the little round robot bodies.
Yeah. These... I mean, Magic's a fantasy game, not a sci-fi game, but this is just, I think, a good example of the way they're able to pull off... How do you kind of take what we think of as a sci-fi concept and just make it work in a Magic world? And I think these expressions and everything really help do that. And we're not trying to explain how the science works. That's key to the fantasy rather than the sci-fi element, I think.
Yeah, I think the farther you go, because there's lots of things that kind of blur the line, but I think the more we lean in, the more answers we get. Like, science fiction is in theory, like, possible.
Yeah.
Whereas fantasy is more, we get a little more of the magic. We get the, like, oh, you know, it kind of just works because it does. Like, we don't necessarily need answers for every single thing.
Yeah.
I want to know what that binary code is.
That's what I was going to get to this. The last thing I just wanted to say I love about this faction. Let me just make the general assertion, too, that the joy I am experiencing about all these factions feels a lot like the very first reveal of Ravnica. And you've suddenly got these 10 guilds, and they all have their own identities, and it's so cool to find out about. This feels similar to me. And I'm not into every faction, but, like, I wasn't then either. Like, I could get super hyped about the Golgari, and this is the first time I've ever been so hyped about something that's Azorius, but, like, here we are.
I just realized that they use a lot of blue and yellow for these creatures, and they're the white-blue faction, which, like, white is often associated with yellow in the game artistically, so I like that. That reads very well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a question looking at these guys like, wait, which color is this card?
You know? So there's two of their vehicles that get this revved up treatment, and the art for the standard is fine too, but I really love the art for the Voyager glide car revved up treatment, and both it and the Salvation Engine
that's cool
have that treatment. They have, like, you observe, there's this binary at the bottom, and actually Scryfall has the answer to your question. It's just a little note there which says,
I need to go see what this says.
It says this one, the Voyager glide car, it's binary for fly, which is cool. And I think it's an oversimplification because binary represents numbers, not letters. So I think the unspoken thing is it's binary for the ASCII value of fly. Which this is my profession, so I have a compulsion to specify. But fair. This Voyager glide car art actually is like peak of that kind of Gundam Robotech vibe to me. Something about this little glowy port in the front,
that's very Gundam,
and that perspective, that is cool.
These things are kind of making me want to boot up my No Man's Sky through.
Yeah, that's fair. But then the Salvation Engine, this is the one that's actually touching, because the Salvation Engine, mechanically, it gets things back from the graveyard when you attack with it, and it spells out save. And you combine that with a flavor text for the regular version, which says, it's a PNLR quote saying, the Guidelight Voyagers seem to exhibit more humanity than their flesh and blood competitors. I love that.
They care about their fallen comrades.
Yeah. They're out there picking them up.
Yeah.
While everyone else is just trying to get to the finish line. And so, again, if I already love, the Johnny Fives of the world, this is the faction for me.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
These are some good robots.
Yeah, they are.
And then I walked up to him and was just like, hey, give me your keys. And he was like, why? because he's like on a phone call. I'm like, just give them to me. And then he does. And he just reaches into his pocket, gives me his keys, and goes back to his phone call. And that's when I snuck out and put the ransom letter in his truck.